What if the thing you call self respect is quietly keeping you lonely? What if the standards you've worked so hard to build are actually doubling as walls and you don't even realize it? Welcome to Signals and Standards with Suzie. Here we talk about empowerment, emotional intelligence, and the subtle patterns that shape your relationships, choices, and sense of self worth as they happen. Today, we're exploring something subtle but powerful. On the surface, it might look like growth, maybe even sound like confidence. Maybe it feels really empowering and like you've got everything under control. But underneath, it can be something very different. We're talking about the difference between being truly high value versus being highly guarded. Somewhere along the way, boundaries started to mean distance. Standards, they became linked to leaving quickly. And self-worth, it turned into never needing anything or anyone, never waiting, never risking discomfort. But real self-worth doesn't rush to leave. It doesn't panic when things are uncertain. And it definitely doesn't shut down when something feels new. It stays present long enough to see what's real and what isn't. Today, we're just taking a step back and slowing down a bit, giving you the space to really notice what's going on, to act in alignment and not pull away out of avoidance. You will recognize how it feels to be clear rather than getting caught in fear. Stay with us. Welcome to Signals and Standards with Suzie, where we decode mixed messages, elevate your standards, and deliver practical insights that you can act on. I'm your empowerment coach, Suzie, here to guide you from confusion to clarity, helping you reclaim your power and create the relationships and life you deserve. These days, emotional control is celebrated almost everywhere. You hear advice like protect your peace, raise your standards, don't settle, don't chase, and don't tolerate. At their core, these ideas make total sense, and they're true. But psychology shows that boundaries are really important for our well-being in relationships. Boundaries help us manage our connections and establish a sense of safety, so we know what feels safe emotionally and how to interact without losing ourselves. There's nothing wrong with healthy boundaries. It's important to have standards, protect your energy. It's important to be self-aware and recognize what works for you. But the real question isn't just whether you have standards. It's about what your standards are actually doing for you in your real relationships, not just in theory. Something changes when you start running every experience through a quick mental checklist. Is this perfect? Is this right for me right away? Is there any risk? Does anything feel a bit uncomfortable? If you feel discomfort or outside your comfort zone, you might leave before anything has a chance to grow. This is when careful judgment slowly turns into defensiveness, often without you even realizing it. Defensiveness isn't neutral. It becomes the way you see things. And if it's your usual approach, it shapes your whole emotional world. You might become seemingly more protected, but certainly not more connected. It may make you more selective, but will it make you more open? It can feel like you're protecting yourself. I get it. I mean, you want to put limits sometimes, right? But you know what? Those limits might limit what you're experiencing in relationships and in personal growth. It's like having an inner rule that tells you to decide fast, leave early. You want to protect yourself first. You want to feel later. Just make sure to put that wall up just in case. On the outside, this might look like confidence or emotional intelligence, but underneath it can be a sign that your nervous system has come to view uncertainty as unsafe. So what you're doing is looking for instant clarity, or you reject things right away if you don't get it. Research shows that healthy boundaries aren't supposed to be rigid walls. Instead, they should be flexible and based on self awareness. Healthy boundaries need more than just rules or labels, they need you to really know yourself. Boundaries should change with the situation, not block them out. Standards, feelings, expectations, boundaries should all work together in unison to support real connection and healthy relationships. If not, what seems like structure can actually turn into restriction. The difference is more important than most people think. The problem with making quick decisions is simple but important. You might leave situations before you really understand them. Not because they're wrong, but because they're still developing and need more time. If this keeps happening, your mind starts to think that anything unclear right away isn't right for you, even if that's not true at all. This is why it's important to really understand boundaries. Boundaries themselves aren't the problem. Healthy boundaries aren't hard, impenetrable walls. They're flexible and based on self-awareness. They help you remain true to yourself while connecting with others. Boundaries should manage how much you give and protect your emotional energy, of course. They should let relationships grow, though, without you losing your sense of self. Defining boundaries early also shows others who you are, and it determines how they see and respond to you from the start. So boundaries are good. They're not bad things. It's just how you use them is what's important. Because studies show that healthy boundaries help with emotional control. They contribute to you feeling safe and ultimately to your happiness in relationships. This is because they're based on clarity, not fear or quick reactions, which makes relationships last and feel more satisfying. So in short, boundaries work best when you set them deliberately and with awareness, not just out of habit or urgency or for protecting yourself. Emotional armor is something very different. It happens when boundaries stop being thoughtful and become automatic. Protection takes over before you even realize it. The goal shifts from connecting with care to creating distance as quickly as possible. Emotional armor tells you, I've seen enough. I'm out. It values control over curiosity. Certainty and quick decisions are really your priority. But you're not very present and there isn't full understanding. The hard part is that it can feel powerful and empowering in the moment because it takes away emotional risk right away. It gives you a feeling of control and decisiveness, maybe even a feeling of being above it all. But it also takes away the depth and the chance of something real to emerge. So this is where people get confused about what it means to have high value energy. On the outside, healthy boundaries and emotional armor can look the same. You seem calm, composed, not chasing, not really over-explaining. You're not reacting emotionally. But on the inside, one comes from self-trust, where you can stay present and choose yourself when needed. The other comes from avoiding emotional exposure, where staying present feels too uncertain to handle. Boundaries are there to help you connect with others while keeping your sense of self. Armor, on the other hand, is meant to block any emotional exposure. When you rely on armor, you might start to mistake emotional distance for emotional intelligence. You might even think that detachment is just good judgment. Research shows that balanced boundaries lead to healthier, more satisfying lives and better teamwork across different areas, both personally and professionally. This is because they let you have both independence and connection, instead of making you choose one over the other. That balance is what keeps a relationship steady and meaningful instead of stiff or distant. This is where it gets personal. If you've ever thought, I keep doing everything right but still feel disconnected, this is often what's missing. It's not always about lowering your standards or being open without caution. It's about slowing down how quickly you decide something isn't for you. so you can tell the difference between something that doesn't fit and something that's just new. Unfamiliar things aren't the same as dangerous ones, but your body can react to both in similar ways. When something feels a little uncertain or unclear, your nervous system regularly tries to fix that discomfort by making a quick decision, usually to leave, just to feel in control again. Somewhat like your fight or flight response. The way we set boundaries early on shapes how we see trust, attraction, our instincts, even emotional safety. This means that what feels like instant clarity is often just a learned way to protect ourselves, not always true intuition. Over time, this can turn into a habit where making quick decisions feels smart, even if it's really just self-protection. This is where real change happens. It's not about being less selective, ignoring the warning signs. It's not about dismissing your instincts or even forcing yourself to stay in bad situations. It's about getting better at handling those in-between moments when things aren't fully clear yet. Growth doesn't come from instant certainty. It comes from staying present long enough to really understand something before you decide what it is, instead of making up your mind too soon. Let's focus on making this practical. This is the moment when things can actually change in your life. Instead of staying as just ideas, next time you notice yourself shutting down, pulling away, or even going quiet, or just deciding something isn't it, treat the feeling as a signal, not an absolute order. Don't judge it, but don't ignore it either. Don't follow it right away. Just pause for a moment and notice that your mind is looking for a way out. It's trying to protect you. And it's not a bad thing, but question it. Just ask yourself, where is this coming from? At that moment, you don't have to force yourself to stay where you don't belong. It's not about dismissing your instincts or pushing through real misalignment. The main thing is to give yourself a bit more space between what you feel and what you decide. So you're not just reacting on autopilot or from your comfort zone. Think of it as allowing yourself a few extra seconds to breathe and check in with your feelings. The goal isn't to change what's real. It's not. But face it clearly instead of rushing impulsively. For many people, feelings and decisions happen all at the same time. If something feels uncertain, unfamiliar, uncomfortable, intense, it just takes a few seconds to decide it's not right or that it's time to leave. That quick reaction can feel strong and safe, but often it's just a habit we haven't really thought about. So instead of quickly asking, "Is this good enough for me?" try to slow down and ask a different question. Ask yourself, do I really have enough information to decide yet? See what happens when you ask that question. It slows things down and breaks up the feeling of certainty. It gives you space instead of just reacting. The point isn't to lower your standards, but to make sure you use them with all the facts, not just a quick feeling. Instead of just saying, "This doesn't feel right," which might be true, but it isn't always the full story. Try asking yourself more specific questions. Ask yourself, is this really misalignment or just unfamiliar? That difference is very important. Misalignment is when something keeps going against your values, your needs, the sense of safety, your core beliefs, that sort of thing. That's clear and solid, and it's important to respect that right away. Unfamiliarity is different. It's something you haven't figured out yet. There aren't enough patterns to judge, and it hasn't had enough time to show it if it's consistent, because our minds don't like uncertainty. We often call unfamiliar things unsafe just to feel more in control. This is where emotionally related coaching can help. Real emotional intelligence isn't about quick answers. It's about staying present in the moment, even when you don't have everything figured out, instead of rushing to decide. It's the skill of handling the in-between stage, when things are still taking shape and becoming clear. This isn't being passive. It's using good judgment at the moment. Here's something most people miss. You don't build self-trust by always getting it right. You build self-trust by learning to stay present long enough to see what's right instead of rushing to decide before things are clear. This change is simple, but it's not small. Give yourself more time between what you feel and what you decide. That space, the pause between feelings triggered and making decision, is where your real emotional intelligence appears. It's where you stop letting urgency make your choices and start acting from clarity, not just self-protection. Over time, you'll even observe the change physically in your body. I used to feel proud of how quickly I could walk away from things. It made me feel strong and confident, even empowered. I reminded myself I was setting my standards high every time. Every time I left something quickly, and sometimes that was true. Other times, I just felt uneasy with not knowing what would happen. I didn't like it when things were still unclear or unfinished. So instead of staying open, I tried to take control. I made decisions quickly and impulsively so I wouldn't have to deal with uncertainty. With time, I saw that what I called discernment was often just acting fast and calling it certainty. I liked my comfort zone, and anything that questioned that was a little more difficult. And I always felt like I had to protect myself because of everything that I had experienced before. For me, really, it was my trauma response trying to protect me. And in fact, it was alienating me from reality. When I learned to slow down, I didn't lower my standards. I made them clearer. I got better at telling the difference between things that didn't fit and things that were just new to me. This shift changed how I connected with others and with myself. And that was so empowering. Let's make this practical because everything we've discussed is really about how your standards work in real life. It's not just about theory or how you see yourself, but about those quick moments when you choose to stay open or to close off. That's when you notice the difference between being aware and running on autopilot. So repeat after me. My standards reflect my worth, not my fear. My standards reflect my worth, not my fear. My standards reflect my worth, not my fear. When you repeat that, you're not just saying words, you're breaking a pattern. You remind yourself that feeling urgent doesn't always mean you have to have insight, and feeling uncomfortable doesn't always mean you should leave. Real self-worth doesn't need to run away to feel safe. It's steady enough to stay present and see what's really true. Here's what I hope you remember from today. Boundaries and standards aren't the real problem. Things get confusing when fear quietly influences your decisions, making what could be a thoughtful choice into a quick escape. Being high value isn't about how quickly you leave. It's about how well you can pause and think before making a choice. If you can stay calm long enough to tell the difference between instinct and assumption, or clarity and reactivity, that's real emotional maturity. If you need help with those distinctions, working with a therapist or coach can help with that. The goal isn't to stop protecting yourself. The goal is to be more honest with yourself. Being accurate takes time to watch. Gather information, be thoughtful, and let things show their true patterns instead of judging based on one feeling. In the end, it's not just about avoiding what's wrong, it's about being open to what's truly right. You can't spot real alignment if you always leave before it has a chance to appear. Next time you feel the urge to shut something down right away, pause for a moment. Don't ignore your feelings, but take a second to check what's really going on. Ask yourself, is this true alignment, or is it fear making the choice too soon? Thank you for joining me today. Here's your big takeaway. Being high value is not about how quickly you shut people out. It's about how clearly you can tell the difference between alignment and protection. Sometimes what looks like confidence is actually emotional armor, and sometimes what feels uncomfortable is just something unfamiliar, not necessarily unsafe. You've been listening to Signals and Standards with Suzie. For more grounded empowerment and relationship conversations, catch the podcast on your favorite platform or connect with me at powercoachsuzie.com. Until next time, pay attention to the signals you're reacting to and the standards you're making decisions from. Not every urge to leave is intuition, and not every moment of uncertainty is a red flag. Real self-trust is built when your signals and standards work together, not when fear makes the decision for you. See you next time. For daily inspiration and practical advice, find me on social media at Power Coach Suzie. Got questions or ideas for the show? Head to powercoachsuzie.com where you can connect with me, explore the blog, or learn more about what I do. This is Suzie signing off. Until next time, keep reading the signals and never, ever lower your standards.